but it's fresh water. And where would the seaweed come from? And it was in the middle of
The head was,
all of that.
that picture, what would be horns or nodules, they're at least that far apart.
And they were sticking out of the water about, say, 3 or 4 inches.
And, is this something dangerous that needs to be marked so somebody doesn't run into it? We went by it. It looked like a log down into the water, but didn't look quite right.
That's when they snapped a photo.
It wasn't until we got home, we got looking at it and zoomed in on it that we were like...
Puzzled.
The horns are if we can call them that,
So,
the nodules.
Yeah.
Oh, at least 3 feet.
And then it goes out from there.
And, it would have been that big. And that's why I thought if it was Ogopogo sleeping.
Skeptics have offered numerous explanations for this 2022 photograph of the alleged Ogopogo in Okanagan Lake in British Columbia. One of the prominent explanations is actually that it is a duck or other waterfowl that is simply caught at a particular angle that gives it the impression of being something else. Other people have even suggested a wolf or decomposing deer head, and I'll explain briefly why I don't find these explanations to hold any water. Basically, if you look at this alleged Ogopogo photograph and you have any sense of the visual depictions of Ogopogo throughout history, you'll see this is too perfect. It literally looks like an oriental dragon. It looks like a Chinese dragon. There's no question about it. Now it's a sophisticated model, if it is a model, but it's either a hoax or it's not. It's not a misidentified animal. There's just no way for the specific anatomy. The supposed webbed feet of the waterfowl, that would not line up with the shape and size and configuration of the actual nodules in the image.
Side of it was like white, and then the outside was dark.
Scientists are at a loss to explain what Jim saw.
In 1975, Ashley Fawn was driving in British Columbia up a hill out of Summerland towards Peachland, right alongside Okanagan Lake. When she saw something in the lake, she pulled over to get a better look at it, and other cars followed in suit. Now a bunch of people are looking out at the Okanagan, at this object that is producing a very large wake. They look at it some more. It almost looks like a medium-sized whale, way bigger than any sturgeon. And then the more they look at it, the more snake-like it appears. But it has sort of a centralized bulk and appears to have paddle-like limbs and a sort of almost cow-like head. They really describe it as having a cow or almost donkey-like head or snout. So really incredible sighting back in 1975 with the Ogopogo in the Okanagan. But before the Ogopogo had that funny name given to it in the 1920s, that's sort of a parody of the original spiritual notion of the Ogopogo, the Enhayatic, the spirit of the lake of the Okanagan waters. And there are other names associated with it as well. Miskachi Kupa Lake, the wicked one in the lake, and the Gust Skaka Kupa Lake, meaning the huge animal in the lake. And there's also another, perhaps more esoteric name, Yakum Quantum Stop, which means immortal being. That's several names associated with this one horned serpent spiritual entity. And the thing with some Ogopogo stories of indigenous lore in the area, they sort of refer to him as the king of the lake, with his servants being, different fish species, and different characters have to try and deal with him, and he can make the waters in the lake rise up to basically consume people. In the year 1870, in British Columbia, Mrs. Susan Allison watched the legendary Ogopogo from Sunnyside, where Vineyard Estates are now. The sun was shining and a strong wind blowing. She says, "As I watched, I saw something that looked like a huge tree trunk or log floating on the lake, going against the current and not with it. She estimated it was 50 feet long and 3 feet wide and not more than a mile from the shore, looking towards the Okanagan Mission, South Kelowna. So rather, Mrs. Allison's sighting of Ogopogo in the year 1870 may be the first sighting by settlers. John McDougall, in 1860, entered the lake to tow his team of horses behind his canoe to the other side of the lake. Normally, John gave a small animal sacrifice to Ogopogo, but this time he had forgotten. Halfway across the lake, the horses began to sink. John quickly got out his knife. He severed the rope and paddled to safety. Natives tell another legend, how when a horse bent down to drink, Ogopogo reached up out of the lake to the horse's face and pulled him under. In the year 1880, Mr. Postal sent timbers downstream to Osoyoos, to Judge and Emily Haynes' ranch. They were hand-sewn and made into a raft at Okanagan Center. As they were building it, Mr. Postal saw Enhaitka, or the Ogopogo, rise up and watch them. This was the first sighting of the lake. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of the whole lake monster phenomenon is the fact that most of the lakes that reportedly have lake monsters in them have pictographs or standing stones in the case of Loch Ness, or various other ancient indigenous artwork that feature dragon or fish-like entities of a supernatural character, specifically the humped back, sort of Eastern dragon-looking animal. And that's definitely present in the case of British Columbia's Ogopogo. The scholar Mary Moon wrote a book titled simply Ogopogo, and in that book she relates that in the early 1920s, it was recalled that settlers spoke of a native rock painting showing a fish or dragon-like animal sort of standing upright with a long neck. This pictograph is supposed to exist above Squally Point. She also relates that Captain Thomas Short, skipper of Mary Victoria Greenhow, came across a huge bone in shallow water while landing a rowboat. The bone was taken to the Victoria Museum, where it was identified as a whale bone from the animal's back. It was then taken to Vernon to be displayed in 1920, but has mysteriously disappeared. In 1930, Mrs. Marjorie Pritchard saw a great white wash going down the lake. The lake was calm, and there was no wind, but she saw, heading to Gelatly Point, was something streaking down the lake faster than any of the ferry boats. She watched from the road that then went along the lake, but did not report it, fearing ridicule. She was convinced that she saw something. And this goes back to multiple reports, including the classic Susan Allison report, where it begins as a sort of vague shape, but often it goes into something of a more dragon-like description. Some people go as far as to say a marine reptile like a plesiosaur, something like a primitive whale is often reported.